We are live, Rumble Studio. Thank you, Rumble Studio, for working better than YouTube Studio. We are live on Rumble. We are live on YouTube. I know we are live on Facebook, because I saw that. I know we are live on LinkedIn. I also saw that. Let's make sure that we are live on X. We are live on X, confirmed. And we are live on Instagram. Good morning. We are live on TikTok. Good morning. Renee, good morning to you. Shout yourselves out as y'all coming in. As y'all are coming into the stream, shout yourselves out. Tell me your locations. Tell me where you are checking in from as we get into this conversation here today on this information that we got from Ms. Gabbard and the current administration on this topic that we're going to get into here today. Shout yourselves out. Tell me where you are checking in from, and we'll get into the proceedings as quickly as possible. Actually, not as quickly as possible. I'm giving y'all a couple minutes. If I want to quickly as possible, I'll just start talking, but I'm going to give y'all a couple minutes to everybody get acclimated, everybody get situated. Let's get ready. Again, we are good over here on Rumble Studio, which is LinkedIn, X, YouTube, and Rumble. And we got Facebook, and then Instagram over here, and TikTok over here. Just make sure everything's looking right. Okay, let's see. Where you are checking in from, tell me your locations as you come in. Please like the stream, especially those of you on TikTok. Please like the stream. The currency is liking the stream. So just tap the screen there, make the hearts come up in the bottom right corner, which is down here. And then just keep tapping the screen to get the likes up. So please let everybody know. Share the live as well. That's another thing y'all can do, is share this live and let other people know that what's happening here. Renee, good morning. Congrats on the first comment. China H, good morning. Good to see you in here. Happy Kitty checking in from Philly. What part of Philly you in? Happy Kitty. Shout out to Philadelphia, my hometown. Carol Ann Collins from Newburgh, New York. Good morning. Tony said, what's the topic today? We got it right here on the screen. Can y'all see this right here? Some people said it looks a little bit smaller to y'all. If you're on the phone, it probably looks smaller to you. I'm using a bigger screen here, so it probably looks smaller to y'all. Today we're talking about Tulsi Gabbard and the Trump administration implicating possibly that the Barack Obama administration has something to do with the hoax around Russia allegedly getting involved in the 2016 situation. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. I got to be careful how I talk about it, because TikTok gets sensitive about certain countries and names being mentioned. So that's the topic here today. Marky Man 007 from Sacramento, good morning. Sissy B from Southwest Florida. So what we talking, Naples? Are you talking the Naples area? Shout out to Naples. Very clean town. I haven't spent a ton of time there, but I have been there. Happy Kitty, I was checking in from West Philly. Shout out to West Philly. Detroit is in the house. Dwayne Mitchell, good morning. Ohio Lima, shout out Ohio Lima. H Dog said Tulsi is psychotic. I don't know, is that a compliment or is that a criticism? Psychotic could be good depending on what she's psychotic about. Fort Myers, so shout out to Fort Myers. That's where Deion Sanders is from. He's from Fort Myers. Shout out to Fort Myers, Florida. There I have not been. I probably drove past it, but I haven't spent any time there. So the topic here today, Barbles checking in from Central Florida. Shout out to Central Florida. User 4900. Oh, about the, you saying Tulsi is about the Epstein? I thought that was Pam Bondi doing most of that, talking about that. But anyway, so Tulsi Gabbard dropped this political bombshell a few days ago. For those who don't know about it, she claims that the entire election interference story that came out in 2016, this is what Tulsi is saying. She's saying this was orchestrated by the exiting Obama administration and used as a political weapon to undermine the incoming Trump administration back in, after the 2016 election. Trump's administration technically started in January of 2017. So what Tulsi is saying is that, and I was listening to Megyn Kelly talk about this in a lot of detail for the last day or two. And one of the things that they're saying is that every day there's a report. There's an intelligence report that comes out and goes to the president every single day. And what happened was, after the election happened in November, I believe it was November 8th or 9th, 2016, that election, then between early November, and then January, Obama knows that he's no longer president because he had already served 2 terms anyway, and he knows that Trump is coming in. So he's getting one of these reports in the morning, and the report is saying, this is what I've heard from Megyn Kelly. She had Matt Taibbi on there. He's a pretty good journalist. And Matt was basically explaining. He was saying that the report was going to come out and it was going to say that, yes, this country tried to get involved in our election and they tried to do this and that. Basically the same stuff they always try to do, according to the report. That this was not a new thing that this country just all of a sudden just start jumping into our elections. They were always involved. They tried to get involved in this one. And they tried to do some stuff, but they didn't have a significant impact on anything, even though they were, and please keep liking the live stream as y'all watching on TikTok, even though they were trying to do stuff, they didn't have really a significant impact and they didn't sway the election one way or another. That was the report that was going to come out to Obama, and somehow, some way, that report got changed and it led to a whole string of other things that came later. I'm going to get into that as we get into this here today. So what Tulsi is implying, and Donald Trump has taken this and run with it. You might have heard there was a clip of him talking to the media. Interesting thing about Donald Trump, he talks to the media damn near every day, as opposed to our prior president, who we didn't hear this guy talk for a long time. And when he did talk, last time we heard him talk, wasn't too good for him. That was about a year ago, the debate that pretty much sealed the fate of our former president, Joseph Biden. But anyway, Trump talks to the media damn near every day. So Trump has taken this and run with it and said, well, hey, Obama is responsible for this. We're going to go do something. We're going to investigate. We're going to call people up to testify, et cetera, et cetera. And what Matt Taibbi was saying was that probably all these people involved in the Obama administration are probably calling their lawyers right now because they're about to get called to testify. Some of them may be charged with certain things. This is what they're throwing out there. But as far as the testimony, that's probably definitely happening. The testimony where they're called to Capitol Hill and you get in front of the committees and they grill you and ask you a bunch of questions and they try to get you in some gotchas. Any of you who's ever watched one of these, this is what they do. That doesn't mean you're possibly up for any type of criminal offense or criminal charge. But based on what you say in that testimony, it could lead to a criminal offense or a criminal charge. And that's what a lot of people in the Trump administration are saying, that what they have found shows that should happen. And of course they're saying that because they're on that side and the people on the other side are on the other side, and they would say the same thing if the shoes were on the other foot. We know that's what they say. What is interesting is that the independent journalists, and there's a good number of them who I follow and listen to on stories like this, because you can't trust anything you hear from the left or the right, because they're all going to say the thing that makes their side look good and makes the other side look bad. We know the game. All right, we've seen this movie before. But the independent journalists are saying this could actually lead to something real, something tangible, because of what has been found out based on the files and the documents that have been shared by Ms. Gabbard and then promoted by the Trump administration. So this exiting Obama administration, this happened in December of 2016. So the election already happened. He doesn't go out of office for another month or so. That they use this as a political weapon, again, to undermine Trump. And we all know for the whole first Trump administration, we know that everybody was saying that, well, Trump didn't really win the election because it was interfered with by this other country and they helped Trump win and all of this stuff. Even Kamala Harris, even up to 2024, was even saying, well, they want Trump to win because Trump is a puppet of the leader of that other country. And I'm being careful not saying their name too often. TikTok sometimes gets sensitive about me saying their name. Country I'm talking about is the country starts with the letter R and their leader is this guy named VP, that country. So people have been saying this ever since he won in 2016. The only reason he won is because they interfered and they helped him win, and et cetera, et cetera. So what has come out recently, according to Tulsi Gabbard, that declassified documents, i.e. stuff you can only see when you work in the government, that have been declassified, meaning more people can see it, shows that top officials who worked with Barack Obama, such as James Clapper, John Brennan, John Kerry, Andrew McCabe. These are all people high up in the administration that worked with Barack Obama and Barack Obama himself. This is what Tulsi said, that they knowingly dismissed accurate, intelligent information in 2016. So here's what Matt Taibbi said, that there was a report that came out to Barack Obama that said they tried to interfere in our election. They tried to do a few things, but it didn't have any real effect. That was pretty much the report. That the Obama team basically dismissed that report, and they said they had another meeting in December 9th, 2016, to launch a new report that said that other country did involve themselves. They did interfere in such a way that played a role in the outcome of the election. This led to what many of you have heard of, that I heard of, called the Steele dossier. I remember the Steele dossier. It was basically a report that is saying this is why Trump won, and it wasn't because people just voted for him. It wasn't because of the will of the people. So Tulsi Gabbard alleges that this planted the foundation for what later on, another one y'all might have heard of, called the Mueller Report. Mueller is how you pronounce his name. It sounds like Miller, but the Mueller Report. And the years-long, quote-unquote, Russiagate. Y'all remember this whole thing, Russiagate. That basically distracted the public. It divided the country. It had everybody saying, well, we don't know if Trump actually won because this country was interfering in the election and they did this and they rigged it this way and that way and the third. And again, this was the whole conversation, at least during the first Trump administration. People still talk about this to this day, not as much, but it was a cloud, I guess we can say, for lack of a better term, hanging over the first Trump administration because a lot of people alluded to, well, the only reason he won is not because the people actually chose him, is because this other country somehow, some way got involved and made it happen. And Hillary was acting like, well, she didn't actually lose. And everybody on the political left, she didn't actually lose. And a bunch of people who are, and I mean politicians on the left, but then people who are not fans of Trump were saying, oh, well, the only reason he won is because of the collusion, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Gabbard has submitted these documents to the Department of Justice, which is basically the legal arm of the United States of America. And she has stated clearly that there will be indictments. For those who know what an indictment is, that means they're going to bring charges, that somebody's going to get charged. Now, of course, the name Obama has been thrown around. That would be the biggest story because he's a former president. For him to get charged would be a big deal because presidents, aside from Donald Trump, usually don't get charged with stuff. So this would be a big deal if Obama gets charged. And it would kind of be like the shoe being on the other foot now, because all the stuff that happened to Trump in 2024, now they will be doing it. Now the Trump administration will be doing it to Obama. That would be a big deal if it were to happen. Now, if this is going to happen, we don't know. But Tulsi Gabbard has said there will be indictments. She didn't say of Obama. She just said indictments. And that more information is going to be released over the next week. So we're not talking theory anymore. This is all on paper. It's backed by the former head of U.S. intelligence that all of this stuff happened, and that's what the story is about. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. I don't want to get into too much detail to where it goes over everybody's head, but we are going to discuss this and what it means for all of us as citizens of the United States of America. Many of you probably voters, and most of you probably have an opinion on at least the president. These other people whose names that I mentioned, James Clapper, John Brennan, Andrew McCabe, I don't really know much about these guys. I know who John Kerry is. He ran for president in 2000. What year was that? 2004. He ran for president in 2004 against W. Bush, and he lost, but he still is active in the government and was active in the Obama administration. So let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Baldwin. Many know me as DreAllDay, former 9-year professional athlete, author of 41 books. I run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. Our job here is to help you perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and produce more results. We run a performance accelerated system that is codified based on stuff that I learned as a pro athlete and translating that stuff over to the business world to help professionals like you do those things I said. Perform at your highest level, do so consistently, produce more results. Work with individuals, entrepreneurs, teams, businesses through our system. You want to learn more about working with me, go to the links that you see in my profile or pinned comments or wherever you're watching me. I'm on 7 different platforms right now: Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So whichever one you're on, there should be a pinned comment or a profile link that you can click on, and it'll take you to learn more about me. So let's get into this today. Let me see how many points I got. All right, good number of them. All right, Tulsi Gabbard held the role of DNI, that is Director of National Intelligence. That's what DNI stands for, Director of National Intelligence. And national intelligence doesn't mean being smart and going to school and getting an education. National intelligence means what's going on in the world, what are some maybe deep state, quote unquote, secrets or things happening between our country and other countries that we need to know about that may be a threat to us, that is looming kind of on the underground, not something that you will find in a local newspaper or on Google, but it's something we need to know about. That's national intelligence. So Gabbard has this DNI role, and it gives her direct access to original files and security briefings. Security, again, same thing. So this isn't secondhand rumor. This is inside documentation. Now, at the same time, that even though she has access to these documents that other people can't access because of her title, at the same time, she is on the political right now, and she is working in the Trump administration right now. So some people can say, objectively, you can say that this leads to a little bit of plausible deniability that she's only saying this because she's working with and for Donald Trump. Of course, if there was something in there that would make Trump look bad or call Trump into question, she probably wouldn't be talking about it and making noise about it. But if it's something that makes Trump look good and it causes it causes his opponents to be brought into question, then she's more likely to put it out there. So I would say, just as an objective person who has no political affiliation, we could take this with a grain of salt if this is all the information that we have, but there's more information. So that point, however, does need to be put on the record, because this is not something that just some random Googler found. This is a person working in the Department of National Intelligence. She has found this information, and this is why she's bringing it up. Now, critics say Robert Miller, those of you who know who he is, he was the guy from the Miller Report. Basically, he put out the report that was saying that there was some interference by this other country in the 2016 election, and he secured 37 indictments. This is the opposite side argument from Tulsi Gabbard, meaning Tulsi Gabbard's claims don't negate everything that was established in 2018. So Robert Miller indicted 37 people based on what he found for the quote-unquote Russiagate situation back in 2018. But Tulsi Gabbard has named specific people. So this goes a little bit further. And she's naming high-up people. Again, Barack Obama himself she named. Brennan, Clapper, McCabe, Kerry. These are people who are high up and very close to Barack Obama. These are people who are in his inner circle during his term, at least the second term, 2012 to 2016, or 2013 to 2016. So she's named these people, and she said it was meant to coordinate the narrative to push across agencies. So this is what she's saying, that there was documentation here. And one of the things that got said, Megyn Kelly was talking about this with Matt Taibbi, is that when the report came out and said there's really nothing here in terms of this other country's interference, that the Obama team and President Obama himself said, we request that you kind of rewrite this report and put out a different report. Now, the thing is, when you're working in the government in this level, any of you who works in corporate, for example, and this is something that I tell people who work in corporate, is that everything has to be documented. You can't just say something to somebody and then try to hold them accountable for what you said, because they could just say, well, I don't remember you saying it, or you didn't say that, or it becomes a he said, she said thing. You can't do that in corporate. You can't do it in bureaucracies. In bureaucracies, everything has to be written down. Every request has to be formally written down and documented, at least if it involves different departments, et cetera, et cetera. So this had to be written down. The request to redo the report had to be documented. Tulsi Gabbard is looking through the files because she has access to the files, and she sees this file that says, requested by President Obama, we want to look at this again. We want to take another look at this. And when she came across that, that's when she said, hey, we have something here. And that's when she says, according to the documents that she's read, that they requested a different report other than the one that said there's nothing here. They requested a report that said there's something here as far as that other country's interference. And this is all designed, according to Tulsi Gabbard, is all designed to undermine, did Trump actually win? It's designed to undermine, did he actually win? Because this other country might have been more involved than the original report said that they were involved. So she's saying that they had a meeting December 9, 2016 to coordinate this narrative to push across agencies, because all you know how the internet works, especially in 2016. Those of you who remember November 2016, after Donald Trump won that election, I think a lot of people were surprised that he won the election. I was surprised. And a lot of people were a lot of people were dealing with what we call cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is basically I'll get to that in a second. Cognitive dissonance is what happens when your experience of life comes into direct conflict with your worldview of how life actually is. So when you think things are one way, and you are pretty sure they're one way, and they've been like that the entire time that you thought about them, then all of a sudden something happens that completely flips the narrative in your head upside down. Most people experience cognitive dissonance. By the way, when those of you watching on TikTok, please like the live. Tap the screen to like the live. I'll explain what that means, and I'll give you some examples. Actually, let me give you an example first. Donald Trump winning in 2016. The cognitive dissonance most people experience was, there's no way this guy's going to win. He's a reality TV star. He's a business mogul and entrepreneur, et cetera, fine. But there's no way he can seriously win an election. There's no way that half of the country, roughly, would vote for this guy to actually be president. There's no way he's going to win. He's going to come out. He's going to draw some attention to himself. He'll lose the election. Hillary's going to win. He'll go write a book, go back to doing TV, and Donald Trump will go away, other than him talking about stuff on his social medias and TV, et cetera, but he's not going to win the election. So when he won the election, again, I told you I was surprised. But the thing is, different people deal with cognitive dissonance in different ways. And the cognitive dissonance that I experienced, I remember this day. I went to LA Fitness in Brickell that morning. That the election's on Tuesday. I didn't stay up to see who won. I just looked at Google the next morning and said Trump won. I said, damn, he won? I didn't think he was going to win. I didn't think he had a chance. He wins. And I'm thinking, because I've been reading a lot of stuff, people just saying that it would be crazy if he wins, that the world's going to go into anarchy, and white people are going to start acting like we're back in slavery times again, and anyone who's not in the majority group, anyone who's not a white male is going to be subjugated. And they were saying all this in 2016. So here we are, 2025, 10 years later, none of those things happened, but this is what they were saying. And I was reading a lot of this, and when he won that next morning, I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, that means straight white men are going to be running around here acting like they don't have any sense the next morning. I went to the gym. There was a bunch of straight white men in there. At least they appear to be straight white men. And everybody was doing the same thing they had been doing the day before. It was all very normal. Nobody was acting any different. And my workout, so I get up, I'm thinking it's going to be crazy in the streets. I go out into the streets, go to the gym, work out, come home, and nothing was any different than it had been the day before. So in that hour, let's say, between the time I left the house and the time I came back, I dealt with my own cognitive dissonance. And the way I deal with cognitive dissonance is I tend to think I'm more objective and logical than the average person, and much more dispassionate. I said, okay, everything that was told to us that I had consumed leading up to this election was all of that was just hype to try to influence people to vote a certain way. And I'm talking about the political left was doing this. So I went and made a video. The video is still on YouTube. Came out November 9, 2016. I remember where I was. I went out to the pool deck in my building and recorded the video. And it was early in the morning, so most people weren't awake yet. And I recorded that video and said, okay, so everybody who is acting like Trump winning is some kind of crazy thing. Well, it's probably not, because Obama was just president and people were posing Obama and Trump as like polar opposites. So if Obama was president for 8 years and your life didn't get amazingly better, then that means Trump being president can't make your life amazingly worse, just by deductive reasoning. It doesn't make any sense. And I remember I put that out there because I dealt with my cognitive dissonance. I said, okay, well, clearly everything that I was told and everything that I was warned to be afraid of with Trump winning clearly isn't going to happen. I knew it immediately as soon as I went outside that day, that Wednesday. And here's how most people dealt with that cognitive dissonance, is that it's terrible that he won. America's terrible. Most of the people who voted, if all those people voted for him, that means America's racist and America's going backwards and America is not the country that I thought it was. I need to leave America. This is going to be horrible. All the gains and successes of minority groups over the last 60, 70 years, 100 years is going to be rolled back by this administration of white men who only care about white men. These are all the things that people started to believe. And these ideas calcified into hardcore beliefs for a whole lot of people for the last 10 years. And to this very day, you see a whole lot of people still think like this. The way that most people deal with cognitive dissonance, which is reality slapping you in the face and telling you that what you thought was true is actually not true, is that most people triple down on what they already believe. That's how most people deal with cognitive dissonance. You think things are one way. Life slaps you in the face and tells you it's actually not that way. But instead of you adjusting your worldview, this is what I did. I adjusted my worldview and said, there's no way. I've been to damn near every state in America. I know a whole lot of black people. I know a whole lot of white people. I know a whole lot of Latin people. I know a whole lot of people who came from outside of USA who live here. It's no way that half of the country is racist and homophobic and sexist, etc. So there's no way. And I was made to believe that the only way Trump could win is if he got a bunch of votes from people who are racist, homophobic, xenophobic, sexist, etc. Then when he won, I said that's not possible. I have enough life experience to know that it's not possible that half the country is like that. Therefore, what I was told is not true. Not what I was told is true, therefore that means everybody's bad. See, that's where a lot of people went. A lot of people went in this direction that Trump winning means all these people in America who voted for him, his supporters, they're racist, homophobic, xenophobic, sexist, etc. And that's the only way he won. I said that's not possible. It's not possible that half the people are that. Therefore, what I was told is not true. So we both got the same story. It's just, what do you do when you realize that the story is in conflict with reality? Most people just triple down on what story they already have in their head, because most people do not have the humility or the discipline or the self-confidence to say, hey, maybe what I thought was true is actually not true. Let me change my beliefs because reality is telling me something different. Again, if you really think about it, most human beings don't have that capability. Actually, everybody has that capability. Most people do not exercise that capability. Please keep liking and live on TikTok. What I did was say, okay, somebody told me some bullshit. let me change my thought pattern here, because clearly this can't be right. And that's when I started looking at and started listening to more people who were more, let's say, in the middle. I started listening to some people hard on the right, some people hard on the left. Let me find out what's actually happening here. And what I realized was that I was the one who had been fooled. I had been fooled because I was only listening to half the conversation. And on that side of the conversation, everybody was making it seem like racist, homophobic, xenophobic. They're going to roll back gains for everybody. It's going to be terrible for black people, terrible for women, terrible for gay people, terrible for everybody who's not white and straight and male. That's what I had been told. But then I realized there's a whole other conversation that I wasn't even privy to. And being an objective person, I said, okay, who's messing up here, me or them? And I realized it was me. Again, looking in the mirror. So this whole thing with 2016, when Trump won, and please keep liking the live over there on TikTok. When Trump won in 2016, the political left, I'm talking to politicians, not the people, but the politicians, they, according to Tulsi Gabbard, and according to what she's saying that she's found out, they actually coordinated this narrative to say he didn't legitimately win the election. This was a coordinated plot, according to Tulsi Gabbard. So you all know how the media works. As soon as a story like this comes out, and you got people who have authority pushing this story and verifying this story and confirming this story and repeating this story, well, what happens? If the everyday person hears this over and over and over again from a trusted authoritative source, i.e. the mainstream media, i.e. some political pundit who you follow or some influential person who you trust, and they all keep saying the same thing, eventually you're going to start to believe it and say, okay, well, this must be true. Maybe this guy isn't legitimate. Maybe this guy didn't actually win. Maybe there was a whole bunch of interference. This is where you get, if you remember in 2016, I remember this, and it was happening down here in Miami, which is not some political hotbed place. So I'm sure it was happening in places that many of you live, especially if you live in a big city. There were marches. People were out marching and protesting after the election and saying that this guy is not the president. And I'm like, he is the president. He won. Didn't y'all see the numbers? He won. But people were out protesting, not because they were so upset at the outcome itself. They were not protesting because of the outcome of the election, because the outcome is the outcome. They were protesting because there were stories that said maybe he didn't actually win, which put fuel on the fire. I think a lot of people were upset that he won. They were definitely people upset that Trump won the election. But they wouldn't go out protesting because of that. They went out and protested not only because they were upset that he won, but also because there was a story fed to them by the mainstream media that maybe this thing wasn't on the up and up. It wasn't as honest as we had been told that it was. That gave people an excuse to say, maybe this ain't real, let's go protesting. And this was all, according to Tulsi Gabbard, coordinated by the outgoing Obama administration. So left-wing media right now is saying that Tulsi's just working for MAGA, which she is, and discrediting her motives instead of refuting the substance of what she's releasing, which again, this is the political theater. The political theater is that anything that comes out of the Trump administration, the people who like Trump, a lot of them are going to co-sign it, and the people who don't like Trump, they're going to refute it, and this is the back and forth cat and mouse game. But this is the reason why I pointed out at the beginning of this. Independent journalists are saying that there's something real here. There's meat on these bones, and that's why I'm talking about it. Because if it was just the administration saying something or the other side saying something, then maybe I might talk about it if it's sensational enough, but generally something like this, not really. But the fact that they're saying there's some substance to this, and the people on the political left, of course, are not addressing the substance, because if there was no substance, they would just address it and say there's no substance here. Look at this. Barack Obama even came out with a statement. He was saying normally we ignore anything coming out of this administration, but this is a serious allegation that they're saying. And of course, they just went on to refute it and say that this is not real, et cetera, et cetera. So this thing called the Steele dossier, which came out back then after the 2016 election, it was later discredited, but it came out and it had legs at the time, and it got a lot of people excited. It was elevated to the public eye after this meeting. And Tulsi Gabbard is saying this was all planned, that this did not just happen organically. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? So let me get some context on the Steele dossier. So everybody can understand where we're at, because I want to make sure we're not getting too deep into the political weeds here that people don't understand exactly what's happening. So the Steele dossier was a collection of opposition research memos compiled by a British intelligence officer named Christopher Steele, and this was in 2016. It contained unverified allegations. keyword, unverified allegations of Donald Trump's connection to the R country, including this collusion claim, this compromising material allegedly that they had over Trump, the R country, and financial ties and shady business dealings involving his interests in the R country. Now, this initially was funded by people who didn't like Trump on the Republican side. So a bunch of Republicans, y'all know a lot of Republicans don't like Donald Trump, right? So over on Rumble Studio, Black Santa said you can't hear the audio. You can't hear the audio? Why can't you hear the audio? Looks like the mic is on. Default USB device. Can y'all hear the audio? Anybody watching on Rumble Studio? I'm not. Let me see if I can check. Let me check over on X, because X is using the same feed. Let me see if I can hear it. Sound check 1 2 1 2. Is this working? I'm trying to check the sound over on Rumble. Stand by, those of you watching on TikTok and Instagram, but someone's saying that they can't hear the audio, so I'm checking myself. Is the audio working on these apps? I can't tell. Let me check over on YouTube. Sound check test 1 2 1 2. No, it looks like the audio is. No, it looks like it's not. So let me find out what's going on here. Sound check. Those of you watching on YouTube or Rumble Studio, can y'all hear the audio? Sound check test 1 2 1 2. What about now? But I had to turn my mic off. Sound check test 1 2. Let me see. 1 2 1 2 audio. Is my mic working over here? And what would be making the mic? I don't see anything to tell me why the mic wouldn't be working. Is my audio working over there on Rumble Studio, YouTube, X, LinkedIn? Sound check test 1 2 1 2. I'm not hearing any sound over here either. Let's see if it's working over here. Are we working on Facebook audio? No. Let's see. Is my audio good on Facebook? Let me refresh this feed. Sound check test 1 2. Sound working over on sound working over on X. I can't tell. This is the problem. I can't tell if the sound's working or not. So Daryl was saying no audio over on X. So why is the audio not working? All right. So those of you on TikTok and Instagram, stand by so we figure out what the hell is going on with the audio over here. They say it's not working, but I don't see any reason why it would not be working.
There's one simple vision hack anyone can use to improve vision.
Not that. Maybe we got to restart this whole thing. All right, let me restart this whole thing over on. I'm not going to start back on my topic, but I will restart the stream over here. Stream directly from the browser. OBS and other streaming software. Let's start this one more time. One, two, three. That's on. Next. Those of you watching on TikTok, one moment, we're just getting the audio back working over on Rumble Studio. For some reason, they're telling me that the audio is not working. I don't know why it's not working. But it didn't give me any indicator that there was anything wrong. So that's the problem here. All right, so now starting Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn again. And then they're even saying the broadcast not available over on that side. So let's see now. Let's try this again. LinkedIn, do we have sound? In this one, we're going to start another one over on LinkedIn. No, I'm not starting it again. All right, so that's there. Are we good on Facebook? I don't know if I can hear myself on Facebook. Let me check Facebook. Where's Facebook? One moment over on TikTok and Instagram. We are still trying to get this sound issue fixed. Should say that I'm live right now. Let's see. Myself on Facebook. Let me check Facebook. Okay, so that works. This sound issue fixed. So it must be Rumble Studio. So something's going on in Rumble Studio that the audio is not coming through. It does say that I'm live, but I can't hear anything. And let's check on X. See if y'all can hear me over on X. Sound check 1, 2. Not this one. We just started a new stream over on Rumble Studio, so I'm trying to see if this one's working. All right, this one's on. Sound working. All right, so the sound is working now, I think. Let me see. All right, volume's good now. Yes, I don't know what happened. Rumble Studio. I don't know. Maybe they didn't like what I was talking about. All right, so let's get back. All right, so back to where we are. Back to where we were. So we're talking about the Steele dossier. Okay. So this claim that Trump had a whole lot of connections to the R country. It was paid for by Republican rivals who didn't like Trump, so they were trying to make him look bad. But after he won the nomination, the funding shifted to Democratic sources. So the Democrats, knowing that Trump was going to be the nominee, so the Republicans gave up, they started paying this guy. And there was a law firm working for the DNC and for Hillary Clinton's campaign that was paying for this Steele dossier. Dossier is just a collection of files. So it was 17 memos, about 35 pages long, that was all compiled between June and December 2016. It claimed the salacious stories like the pee incident in a hotel in Moscow, allegedly. And again, this is all coordination between Trump and the R country. This came out in January of 2017, right before Trump's inauguration, and BuzzFeed put this out. So this is all planned to put out to basically smear Donald Trump's name, the Steele dossier. This sparked a lot of controversy because all the information was largely unverified, and to this day, most of it still is unverified. So the FBI used parts of this and to support surveillance applications against a former Trump campaign advisor. The DOJ Inspector General later criticized the FBI for relying too heavily on the dossier without properly vetting that it was true. And Steele himself admitted that some information might not be accurate and that he had collected it through third-party sources and treated it as raw intelligence. In other words, somebody told him something happened and he wrote it down as if it was a real thing. And this was intended as political opposition research, which is fine, you can do that, but it contains serious but unconfirmed allegations, and then people put it out, and this played a broader role in this whole interference investigation, and has since been widely discredited as an unreliable and flawed intelligence document. But because people were so emotionally triggered over Donald Trump, they went and ran with this anyway, even though it wasn't even based in anything true. There was no evidence and no proof that this thing was even real. So this was elevated to the public eye after this meeting. So for all y'all to understand what actually happened here is that the Obama administration, according to Tulsi Gabbard, they said, we're not going to take the story that nothing happened. We're going to run with the story that something happened. We're going to create the story that something happened. And we're going to use the Steele dossier as evidence that something happened. And they elevated this, put it out to their friends in the media. The media took it and ran with it because everybody was upset about Trump winning. And they used this to try to undermine his credibility, the credibility of Trump, that is, in his first administration. So that's what Tulsi Gabbard is saying. Now, Democrats argue that this disinformation was still happening. The Russiagate, quote unquote, the disinformation was still happening by bots and troll farms, whether the dossier was fabricated or not, that they were still doing stuff to try to allegedly, quote unquote, interfere with the election. Now, if this whole thing is true, and this all the Democrats are saying is just as a way of basically running interference to the story. If all this is true, it flips the whole story. That the U.S. intelligence community was not reacting to influence from our country. They were actually creating this influence. They were creating a story that didn't even exist to justify anything that was going to be used, anything and everything that they could use to try to make Trump look bad and undermine Trump's credibility. They were going to use it. That's what they are basically saying that they were doing. This is what Tulsi Gabbard is saying. So many people are still leaning on this. All these intelligence agencies agreed that there was some interference in the election. But again, what do you mean by interference? What does interference actually mean? If I'm the president of Brazil and there's an election in America and I say I like this candidate over that candidate, is that interference, or is it me just offering my opinion? At what point does it become interference? And this is where the whole thing gets tricky. It gets tricky here because people just use these different terms that can be interpreted in multiple ways. And when you use terms that can be interpreted in multiple ways, it allows you to get really slick and really fishy with the language. But Gabbard now says the consensus was built on manipulative and selectively filtered data, which of course it is. All consensus is built on manipulated and selectively filtered data for the most part, especially anything that has to do with politics, and triple especially anything that has to do with Donald Trump, because a lot of people are so emotional about Trump that logic completely goes out the window as long as you can make him look bad, or at least in your mind you can feel like you made him look bad, then it makes you feel good. That's what's happening. So Matt Taibbi, I mentioned him already, he's been a skeptic of the whole Russiagate point from the very beginning. He says that the new information places Obama, this is his words, quote unquote, squarely in the crosshairs. That's what Matt Taibbi said. This guy's an independent journalist, so he's not working for the Trump administration. He says it is the strongest evidence yet that the entire hoax started at the top of the administration, i.e. the president. So this is what he's saying. It doesn't mean it's true, but this is what he's saying. And I'd rather hear it from him than hear it from, honestly, from Tulsi Gabbard. Because Tulsi Gabbard, she works for the government and she works for a certain political side. And as soon as you take a side politically, then everything you say has to be weighed against the side that you're working for. What team are you on? Matt Taibbi is not on the team. And he says this puts Obama squarely in the crosshairs. So that, to me, gives it more weight. Because, again, he doesn't have a team. Now, some argue that Taibbi is not objective and he's more of a political pundit than an investigative journalist. I say, whether you call him a political pundit or investigative journalist, doesn't change the reality that he's not on one team or another. And he has been skeptical of the entire story from the beginning. So he's been out for a while, this guy, Matt Taibbi. He was one of the people that helped put out the Twitter files. Remember when Elon took over Twitter and turned it into X? And they put out all these files showing what X was actually, or what Twitter was doing to kind of suppress certain voices, et cetera, et cetera. He was one of the people who was putting that material out there. And Matt Taibbi is, again, he has been skeptical of the whole Russiagate story from the very beginning. So this is not something he just came out with now. And some say that he is not objective. Well, I mean, you can say that about anybody who's saying something that you don't want to hear. But we'll find out. He said to put Obama in the crosshairs. It doesn't mean anything's going to happen. Now, Tulsi Gabbard has already handed documents over to the DOJ and says indictments are a matter of if, not when. So if someone's being indicted, that means somebody's being charged, somebody's going to have to come to court. And this is not just a headline and that is moving towards prosecution. Now, realistically, prosecutions of former presidents or intelligence heads can be blocked by political deals, legal technicalities, public backlash. What's the chances that Barack Obama ends up actually sitting in a courtroom testifying and being charged with a crime? I say very low. I say it's still very low. A whole lot of things will have to happen. A whole lot of deals will have to be made. A whole lot of people will have to move out the way before that ever happened. And at the same time, I'll say after what happened to Donald Trump in 2024, it's possible. Is it impossible? No, not anymore. Not after what happened to Trump in 2024. After that, then anything and everything is possible. I still say it's highly improbable just because he's a former president. And even with the Trump stuff, all the stuff they did, they still didn't get him as much as they tried. Now, Trump and his team, they, of course, and they should do this, they are using this as a full vindication for what happened back then. And they're using it as fuel. And, of course, you're going to see pictures of Obama in handcuffs and all the stuff they did to Trump. you're going to see people on the political right doing it about Obama. Like he's going to be in handcuffs, he's going to go to jail, et cetera, et cetera. And all the people on the political left, the paid influencers, I know who a bunch of them are, paid influencers on X. I follow some of them. They're out saying, well, any of you think that Obama's going to go to jail, you're going to be highly disappointed, and I'm going to be laughing at you, and et cetera, et cetera. This is all the information game that they all play. It's on some levels annoying, but at the same time, I understand everybody got to do their job. Please keep liking and live on TikTok. Let's get up to 30,000 likes, please. So partisanship may drown out the facts, as I've already explained to you. We don't know what the facts are. And generally, facts don't matter anymore, not nearly as much as they used to. And partisanship makes everything you hear have to be taken with a grain of salt. Anything you hear from anybody who is on a certain side politically, you have to weigh everything they say against the fact that they're on a certain side, and what else are they going to say? You got to consider that anytime somebody on the political left or the political right says anything, and I hold both sides to that same standard. And many Americans, especially when it comes to Donald Trump, are too emotionally anchored into their position on this whole Russiagate story to reevaluate their stance, whether you're a Trump supporter and you hate the people talk about it, or you're an anti-Trump and you love the people talk about it. Either way, so many people are so emotionally engaged in this, I don't know who to believe or who to trust in this whole story. Please keep liking and live those of you on TikTok. Now, if this is a top-down manipulation of intelligence, it redefines the 2016 to 2020 media environment as a giant political psyop, not just a policy disagreement. I say this doesn't redefine it. We already have that. We already got that. You want to say that what happens in media with regards to politics is a big psychological operation. That would be true even if this story never happened. Everything that happens in media with regards to politics is a psychological operation. What do I mean by that? What is a psyop? Psyop is when people basically play with your mind. They play mind games with you to get you thinking a certain way, even if the reality and objective truth of the situation is in complete conflict with what you're being told. Because you tell people anything often enough, they're going to come to believe it. And if you give them enough emotional fuel to confirm what you've been telling them, then of course it's going to make them feel even more that they are right and that they have the right information and they don't need to hear anything else. So, for example, somebody who doesn't like Donald Trump, please keep liking and live on TikTok. Somebody who doesn't like Donald Trump hears some negative stuff about Donald Trump. They don't need to go verify it because they already don't like him. So as soon as you hear something negative about him, you feel good about that, and you're going to run with that because that's what you want to hear in the first place. That's the way it works. So do we have one giant political psyop? I say yes. We've had that for the last 10 years, especially since Trump got involved. Because before Trump got involved, as far as I could see, people were not so emotionally engaged in what happened with the government. People were, but not nearly as much as they are now. Now everybody has an opinion. In 2008, yeah, I guess you could say Obama was part of it. Obama started it a little bit. Donald Trump it multiplied when Donald Trump came in. Because a bunch of people came in on Obama. They were happy with Obama and excited about Obama, excited about there being a black man president. People of all colors were excited about that. And that was more positive emotion around Obama. Of course, he had his detractors. Everyone does. But it was more, the momentum around Obama was about the positivity of having Obama. The momentum around Trump was the negativity of people pushing against him, which only made his supporters push back harder against them. And then it created this clash. And we've been in that clash for the last 10 years, even during the 4 years when Trump wasn't even president. So even if Tulsi Gabbard proves her case, the media and political institutions that ran the original narrative will never admit fault, and justice may never come with accountability. Meaning, all the platforms that said, oh, this happened, there was interference, this guy's compromised, this guy didn't actually win. Is any of them going to come out and say, okay, now that we got this new information, I'm sorry, everybody, we lied to you in 2017. Is anybody going to come out and say that? Hell no. Nobody's going to say that. That conversation will never happen. So what Taibbi is saying is that this is a smoking gun moment. Now we got names, dates, motive, and the media is scrambling to try to figure out how do they respond to this. So this is where we're at right now today. This is where the situation is right now. And we'll see where this ends up going. Again, Tulsi Gabbard said there'll be indictments. I believe her that there'll be indictments, but an indictment doesn't mean that you actually did something. You still get to have your day in court. You still get to call your lawyer. And these political people, if anybody knows how to play the legal paperwork game to keep themselves out of hot water, they know it better than anybody, other than an actual lawyer getting indicted. Nobody else is better than these folks. So is this going to actually turn into anything real that we can hold in our hands, anything tangible? I would say, I would guess more likely, I would guess more not than likely. Not more likely than not. More not than likely, simply because it's politics and these people can avoid damn near anything they want to avoid it. A lot of people think that money is what keeps you out of court and keeps you out of jail in America. Yes, money is one of them. Another thing is influence. Influence can keep you out of jail more than money can. If you know the right people and the right people know you and you are connected to people who actually work in and with the court system, you got a better chance of beating a charge than a person with a whole lot of money who knows nobody. Y'all get what I'm saying? If you had $1 billion in your bank account, but you don't know anybody in the legal system, you get charged with a crime, you might still go to jail. Prison. You might still get convicted. You go to jail just for getting charged, but you might still get convicted even if you got $1 billion in cash and the best lawyers in the world because you don't know anybody. Now, the reason why you hire lawyers, for those who don't know how the legal system works, one thing that one valuable tool that a lawyer has in their briefcase is the relationships they have with other lawyers, prosecutors, and judges and courts. That's a big thing that lawyers have. So any of you who's ever hired a lawyer, one of the things that lawyer will tell you is that I know the judge, I know the prosecutor, I worked with this person before, and they tell you that to relax you and to make you feel better about, hey, we can work this out and get the kind of outcome that you want to get here because there's a relationship between me and the people who are on the other side of this case, whatever the situation may be. That's connection, that's relationships, that's network. That's more valuable than money. If you have a whole bunch of money and no network, you can still lose. If you got a big network and no money, you can win. You got a better chance of winning with a network than you have with money when it comes to the legal system. Now, there are other aspects of life when you probably want to have some money. But when it comes to the legal system, it's about networks. And these political folks, these politicians, they got more network than anybody, especially when it comes to the DOJ. So, is this going to turn to anything? Nah. If I had to bet right now, I would bet against it. I think there will be charges. There may be cases. There will be a ton of hearings, but there's going to be a whole lot of red tape, a whole lot of meetings, a whole lot of talk. Is anybody actually going to get let out in handcuffs and go to prison? I say I doubt it. Any of these big name people, I doubt it. All that being said, everybody, let's have some conversation about this topic here today. Again, we're talking about the Russiagate. Tulsi Gabbard is claiming that there was some collusion and it wasn't how it was presented to be. Now that she's looked at some documents that she has access to now as head of DNI and working in the current Trump administration. So let's see what we got over on TikTok. If you got something, let me go this way. If you got a question or comment, go ahead and post it. I think we might be able to see all the comments here today. Let's see what we got. I think a lot of people are on vacation right now. Y'all notice there's fewer people. I see fewer people out in my normal places these days. I went to the gym the other day. It was like a third of the normal crowd. This morning, it was more people there. But Monday, it wasn't a lot of people there. Maybe I was just early. Big Stack said, yeah, I used to hoop. Yes. Barbo said, pretty sure we already knew this. No? Already knew what? And when you say we, who you referring to? H-Dog says she's trying to be relevant for 5 minutes to take attention away from Epstein. Well, she's the head of national intelligence, H-Dog. I think that's pretty relevant. I don't think she needs to come out with a story to be relevant. She works in the damn administration of the president. The president's cabinet is how many people in the president's cabinet? I think maybe 12 or 13, something like that. How many people in the president's cabinet? The president of the United States is the biggest job in the United States of America. And the president cabinet traditionally includes 15 people, executive department heads. And if you're one of those 15 people, I think that makes you relevant just on that principle alone. Just the fact that point alone, rather. Just the fact that you're in the cabinet, you're relevant. So H-Dog, you're talking about some Instagrammer. She works with the damn president. Kyrie said, you have great hygiene. Thank you. Unique Pink, thank you for the hearts and the go popular. Good morning to you. Barbo said they'll all plead the fifth. Well, depending on what kind of charges they get and what ends up happening if there's an indictment. So again, like I said, there'll be a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy, and they all got lawyers and they're all connected. So the chances of this turning into something is it's going to be a very difficult thing, uphill climb, let's say. Tenzin, yes, good morning to you. Yes, Dre Baldwin, that's me. We're not talking about basketball though, but I appreciate it. Trev Times said, finally someone speaking the truth. Thank you. Boeing Louver said, source of what? Barbo said, Comey too. Yeah, maybe. Roberta said, with the charges, they may be facing past the statute of limitations. I don't think so. It wasn't mentioned by the people who I read and heard talking about it. None of them mentioned the statute of limitations, so I don't think that that will have anything to do with it. And it also depends on what they charge them with. And Trev says, Steele dossier was garbage. Well, some people thought that then, but a lot of people ran with it because a lot of people don't like Trump. That's the whole point. And this is one of the reasons why people deserve to know about it, because a lot of Americans, I'm talking citizens, not the politicians, a lot of us were psyoped by what we were told about the 2016 election, about Trump, about the whole Russiagate situation. And we want to know where it came from, who created it, and if people did this on purpose, we do deserve to know that because we elected these people. They work for us. Those politicians, whether we're talking Obama, Trump, anybody else, they work for us. So we deserve to know what they were doing on company time because they're getting paid with our tax dollars. Moni said, we'll see. I said if the dossier was obtained by false pretenses, everything afterwards should fall. Well, it's not even false pretenses. That was the dossier actually true is the question. Is how he obtained it is he got information from other people. And somebody said that somebody said something. He put that all into the dossier. So that's not a false pretense. It's is what was in it accurate or not? If it wasn't accurate, then it should never have had legs. And a lot of people didn't believe it was accurate when it first came out. But a bunch of people ran with it, not because they believed it was accurate, but because they don't like Trump, and anything that sounded like Trump looks bad, they were going to run with it whether it was true or not. So the what's the word that I'm looking for here? The irresponsibility was putting it out in the first place if you're trying to be logical and objective, and that is weighed against. I don't think people were trying to be logical and objective when it came to Donald Trump. They were trying to smear him and make him look bad by any means necessary. So if we're going to put out this that is highly questionable at best, we're going to put it out anyway because it makes him look bad, and that serves our purposes. So y'all got to understand that this people being more emotional than objective and more emotional than logical applies to politicians the same way it applies to everyday people. Moni said, under fruit of poisonous tree should have, I don't know what you're saying there. China, thank you for the gifted badge. Courtney, good morning. Cheyenne Wordall, thank you for sharing the live. Tenzin said, am I accusing Obama? I'm not accusing anyone. I'm telling you what Tulsi Gabbard has said and what the, what's the other word? The objective, independent journalists are also saying with regards to what Tulsi Gabbard has shared. Everything is based on what we heard from Mrs. Gabbard. Peter said, more misdirection, anything to divert attention from the Trump Epstein files. Well, I don't think attention is diverted from that. And they already said that Mrs. Maxwell has agreed to testify on Capitol Hill. So what else y'all want to happen? If they don't want to release the files, whatever those files may be, they won't release the files. So people talking about it is not going to make Trump do anything. He's the one who has control of the files. Secondly, Ghislaine Maxwell has already agreed to testify. They haven't scheduled when that's going to happen, but if and when it does happen, I'll be talking about it because I'll listen to that testimony to hear what she has to say. Third, let's also remember, this is the main thing I always come back to when it comes to the files that people claim exist and that Trump might be in it, et cetera, et cetera. If he's in it, why did they not release the files during the Biden-Harris administration? If there was any group that was incentivized to make Trump look bad, it was the Biden-Harris administration because they knew he was going to run again. They knew they didn't want him to run again. They knew they wanted to smear his name, make him look as bad as possible so he didn't have a chance of winning. Why did they not put it out? They had access to the same files that Pam Bondi has access to. Why did they put it out? If people truly believe he was in the files, why didn't Biden release it? Same files that Pam Bondi has now, they had then. Why did they do it? So anyway, continuing. Tenzin said, only one committing treason is Trump. I don't know what you're referring to there. I didn't say anybody committed treason. You posed a question that is a false question, and then you answered your own false question. So Barbo said it shouldn't be about sides. Well, welcome to politics. Everything's about sides. Barbo said, don't forget Comey. I mentioned him. Barber said, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. No, just because it's documented doesn't mean it happened either. Something being documented does not mean that it happened. It just means you wrote it down. Let's see. But I think you're referring to, what I think you're referring to is just in the government that you had to document stuff just because if you want somebody to do something, you had to have it on paper so it can occur. I think that's what you're referring to. Chat, thank you for the follow. Please keep liking the live. Those of you watching on TikTok, we're at 32,000. Palmetto said, gosh, more finger pointing, both sides are fraud. They should focus on moving us forward. Well, and then you woke up. All right, this is how politics works in America. Ed, thanks for the follow. Barble said, thank God Hillary didn't win. Well, she had a chance. She had a better chance than Kamala. Barble said, fear mongering at his best. Pretty much. Dolly Matt, good morning, says, some of these people need to get out, travel. Simply Farm said, that is the truest fact I've ever heard. Most people will not admit when they are wrong. And it's not even so much about, I get what you're saying, thank you. It's not so much about being wrong. It's about shifting your worldview when you get new information. A lot of people don't change their worldviews even when they get a real life experience that directly conflicts with that worldview. Because most people, and I say this to my audiences all the time, most people become a certain type of person by about age 25 or earlier, and they stay the same person until they die. They just get older, fatter, and uglier. Most people do not change mentally in any way once they complete puberty and they hit adulthood. Most people just stay the same. And that includes their thoughts, their actions, their words, their associations, everything. They just stay the same. They just find new ways to affirm what they already believe. And the way most people deal with their own cognitive dissonance, which is when real life gets into conflict with their beliefs, is that they triple down on the belief. So again, when people say, well, the only way Trump will win is if a whole bunch of racists vote for him, that'll never happen, LOL. Then he wins. They're like, oh, well, everybody must be racist. That's the only conclusion because it just verifies what they already thought. I said, there's no way half the country is racist. That's not possible. I've been to many places. I've dealt with too many people. There's no way half the country is racist. This doesn't add up. That must mean that the story that I was told that the only people voting for Trump are racist must be the lie. The lie is not that half the country won't vote for Trump because half the country isn't racist. The lie was that the only people voting for him are racist. I said a bunch of people voting for Trump, all those people voted for him, they can't all be racist. That's not possible, which means somebody lied to me. Not that the world is just bad and everybody's terrible because they made a decision that goes against what I wanted them to do. Again, this is the way most people, if you even want to call this thinking, it's not really thinking. I'm being generous by calling it that. Also, thank you for the rose. Barble said, we already knew this. She's simply providing the proof. Well, I don't think we knew it. I don't think we knew anything, Barble. So this is all alleged as of now. For it to be actual truth, it has to be proven in a court of law at this point. Because the other side is saying it didn't happen. They're saying it did happen. So how do we know? It'd be more accurate for you to say you believed it. Barble said the media is responsible for the division in this country. I don't even think the country is that divided. I think people are divided in terms of their opinions, but generally people are still the same people that they were. I think who's most responsible? The media plays a role. I think people, the everyday people are responsible because, listen, Barble's out say as a response to you and everybody in here is that when the media puts a story out, who's the one who decides to believe it or not believe it? We are. The media can say whatever they want. I don't have to believe it if I don't want to. Okay, media put out a story that said ABC. I said, all right, I don't believe it. And I just move on. I don't care if everybody else believes it. I don't believe it. So the only way that the media can cause division is if we accept and believe what the media says. And you don't have to accept and believe anything that anybody says to you if you think for yourself. And I'm not saying any of you doesn't think for yourself. What I'm saying is we can't blame the media because the media only gives us what we're asking for. If the media is giving a bunch of stuff that we didn't want to hear, then the media wouldn't exist. They give us what we asked for. So I can't put that on the media. I got to put that on an everyday person. The division, any of us thinks exists in the United States is because of the people in the United States. Most people do not think for themselves. Most people do not read. And most people are mentally, emotionally, and physically lazy. So if you tell them anything that aligns with what they already believe, they will accept it and they will run with it without considering, is this actually true? That applies to people on all sides politically. Freedom said audio wasn't working on YouTube. Yeah, I think I fixed it. Hopefully I did. Said Rumble was good, but YouTube wasn't working. No, but we got it working now. Barbara says she switched parties, which tells me she's not lying. That's not enough information for me. I get what you're saying, Barbles, but that's not enough information for me to say she's not lying. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's lying. It's not that you're either lying or telling the truth. Sometimes people just interpret the same information differently, and neither one of them is lying. And at the same time, you always have to consider what team is she playing for. She's playing for Team Trump. She's on Trump's team. And when you're on Trump's team, you're probably not going to report anything, any breaking news that will make your teammate look bad. You're not going to do that. Doesn't mean that she's lying when she says anything that makes Trump look good, but it also means we got to take that into consideration. So that's why I can't just blindly accept what she says because of the team that she decided to be on. We got to be fair. Same thing I would say if it was on the other side. Murphy said, doesn't matter what is found out, even if guilty of sin, no one is charged or convicted. Well, there will be charges, I think. She said charges are coming. It's a matter of when, not if. Now, conviction is a whole different story. But charge, that's happening. Barbara said Obama was very divisive. I voted for him, but he disappointed me. Well, how was he divisive? Maybe what he did, possibly. But I don't know if we could say he was divisive. I think the idea of Obama led to division because there were a bunch of people who didn't want. I think there was a faction of people in America who didn't want to see a black person as president. That is a real thing. There was a bunch of people who wanted the black person as president. That's also a real thing. Neither one of these groups cared anything about his policies. They just said, oh, black guy, I want him. Black guy, I don't want him. There was a bunch of people who made their decision just based on that. Didn't matter what his policies were. Then there were people who actually looked into his policies and they pay a lot of attention to politics. And at that time, I was not paying a ton of attention to politics. I knew who he was, of course. I knew he was black, of course. And I voted for him because he was black. And I wasn't paying attention to politics. So I was one of those people in that group that I just explained. But there are people out there who do pay attention to politics. And they were looking at what he was actually saying, his actual policies. And they said, we don't like this guy's policies. I don't care what color he is. We don't like what this guy's about. And those people who are more plugged into, hey, this is what he's actually looking to do. Barack Obama being such a great orator, he's one of the best public speakers I've seen. Being such a great public speaker, he was able to take his ideas that some may see as bad or radical, and he made them sound great. That is a skill. He was very good at that. And he's not as good as he used to be now, but he was one of the best that I've seen. But I don't know if I can say he as a person was divisive. The same way I wouldn't say Trump is divisive. I say the idea of him is divisive because people have such strong opinions. But when it comes to a president, that's a normal thing. Yes, we got the 30,000 likes. Thank you. Can we get the 40,000 folks? We're at 36K. We got 18 minutes left on this live, 17 minutes, and then we'll wrap this up. But please get the likes up. Let's get the 50,000 likes, please. Please, 50,000 likes. Elsa said, I will take that beat. What are you referring to? Murphy the Mutt said, a whole lot of nothing's going to be done regardless of what happened. I don't know. Still early. And charges can still mean something even if nothing ever happens. I mean, look at Trump and the Epstein thing. Is Trump in any way implicated? No. But do people keep using it and talking about it? Yes. Even though I doubt there will be charges against him. Kathleen said, if he was in the files, they would have used that instead of the Russiagate. Well, I'm talking about the Biden administration. That one was the 2016. I'm talking about the 2020. Because they knew he was about to run again. So if they knew he was about to run again and they had access to the files, why didn't they put it up? Rodney said they all on the list, that's why they don't release it. Yeah, I've said that multiple times, that if there is a list, first of all, we don't know if there is a list. People are talking about the files in a list as if we are sure that they exist. We don't know if they exist. If there is one, it probably implicates so many people that they can't pick and choose. Or there is no list at all. Or if there is a list, the list might just be a flight log. Now, if you have a private plane, you usually log who gets on the plane. Just because you got on the plane doesn't mean you did anything wrong. So we don't even know if there is a thing to even be discussed, let alone have we seen it. And if there is one and Trump's in it, I highly doubt it's going to come up. So that's where I stand on all of this. Barbo said, I switched from Democrat to Republican in my 40s after Obama. All right, fair enough. Barbo says she's playing for Team USA. No, okay. Barbo said his words were divisive in regards to religion, race, class, and gender. I don't know. Was he the first president to do that, Barbles? George W. Bush didn't do that. Bill Clinton didn't do that. And I don't know if we could say his words were divisive. I would say his ideas were received by people in a way that strongly divided opinions, is the more accurate way of saying it. I don't think he came out and said, hey, let's separate this group from this group. What he came out and said was, he had his opinions. Read Barack Obama's books. He tells you what his opinions and positions are. He's very clear. And he's very good at putting into flowery language. I think people's response to what he said on those issues divided people strongly because they had strong opinions on his opinions. But his words being divisive is not actually the outcome, or the results of his words led to division. But to say his words were divisive, I can't go with that. Kathleen said Obama fueled the flames in Ferguson. Well, yes, he did, because the original story we got in Ferguson was hands up, don't shoot. But then his own attorney general proved that that wasn't the case. So, Jiminy said bias is what you report and also what you don't report. Yes, exactly. So everybody's biased because not everybody reports everything, and everybody reports something. And when people hear something that they don't like, they consider that to be biased. That's their first response, because the cognitive dissonance is what's being reported is going against the grain of what you wanted to believe. So again, it goes both ways. This applies to all sides. There's no side that's exempt from this. Every side politically is implicated in that concept, because you can call something biased by what you say and what you don't say. So if I walk through the gym and I speak to one person but don't speak to another person, is that bias? Technically, yes. I spoke to one person because I know them, and I didn't speak to the other person because I don't know them. Is that bias? Technically. I mean, so you could, that's one of those slippery terms. It's one of those slippery terms that you can use, and it can be interpreted in so many different ways that we got to use. I personally like to use different language to explain these things, because if we just use that word, 10 different people can interpret that term 10 different ways. So now we're not even having the same conversation. That's why it's important. That's why I try to choose my words carefully, and I try to use accurate language when I'm talking about these things, for the sake of making sure everybody understands exactly what I'm saying, and my words cannot be misinterpreted by anybody who's actually listening to what I'm saying. Now, when people take your words and they change it into something that you didn't say, that's when you get into the straw man fallacy and other things. And also here on TikTok, you got to be careful, because TikTok has very sensitive monitors for the things that you say. And I've been suspended on TikTok 15 times, literally 15 different times on TikTok over the last year, for saying something that the TikTok moderation team or their AI bots, whatever, didn't like what I was saying. So I also careful with my words for that reason as well. Barbo said, if POTUS calls people racist, it holds weight. Well, did Obama actually do that? I don't know if he actually did that. You would have to tell me where he actually said that and quote me his actual words. I don't think he did that. Now, did he allude to police and race? Yes. Now, at the time, with the information we had, did it make sense for him to do it? Also, yes. When we got new information, he stopped saying it. That's also true. So again, we got to factor in everything. If we pick and choose which piece of information we want to go off of, then yes, you can make anything sound like anything. But we got to look at the situation as it was, what his role is, what his constituents were saying. Remember, Barack Obama got a large percentage, probably 95+% of the black vote in 2008, 2012. So a black person allegedly gets murdered by a police officer, a white police officer, and a bunch of black people are like, hey, Mr. President, we voted for you. What you got to say about this? He comes out and says what you would think he was going to say, based on the information we had at the time. When we got more information, though, he didn't come out and undo what he said. That's not how politics work. He has to play the game. So another thing we all have to understand as citizens, when you're talking about a politician, especially someone like the president, they don't operate under the same rules that we operate by. So if I say something here today that is 100% inaccurate, but I don't find out until tomorrow, I can come back on here and say, all right, what I said yesterday was wrong because, and I give you the information, and I'll tell you the right information. I can do that. The president can't do that because they don't play by the same rules. So he comes out, he didn't come out and keep saying the same thing. He just got quiet. He just let it go and moved on to something else because he didn't have the space, nor is it under the rules, quote unquote, for him to backtrack and say, hey, everybody, I was wrong yesterday. In his position, you don't do that. So that's just the way that it works. Barbo said, like, Trump calling Schiff a thief is just wrong. I don't know. Who's the judge of what's right and wrong? I think that's all. When it comes to Donald Trump, he's different. You gotta read between the lines of how people communicate. Everybody uses different styles of communication. So my style of communication is very different from Trump. Trump speaks more directionally and metaphorically. So when he calls somebody a thief, he's painting a picture of the person. Is he literally saying that you stole something from me? No. He's painting a picture. Same way when he says build a wall. Did he literally mean an actual wall? In a way, yes, but that's not really what he meant. When he said build a wall, what he meant was we're going to enforce our borders, enforce our immigration rules, and we're going to focus on the citizens who are actually here, not focus on importing new people into our country. That's what build a wall meant. It wasn't, hey, we got to build a wall to block people from crossing the border. Even though they're actually doing that, that's not what it meant. It was an image. It was a metaphor. Donald Trump speaks metaphorically. He does it all the time. So when he calls somebody a thief, it's a metaphor. When he said crooked Hillary, that was a metaphor. That she is a person who you don't know if you can trust her, even though she has that nice smile on her face all the time. Can you actually trust her? She's crooked. When he says sleepy Joe Biden, it was a metaphor. Like, this guy's sleepy. He's tired. He's too old. He's not capable. He's physically deteriorating. He's mentally deteriorating. It was a metaphor to paint a picture in everybody's mind. And Donald Trump is very good at that because, as you can see, all these names that he gave people, they tend to stick. They tend to stick with people. He had low energy Jeb. He had Lion Ted Cruz, low energy Jeb Bush. He used these on these people, and those tags tend to stay there for a long time. So that's just his communication style. So for all of us as everyday people, forget about politics, is that when you're listening to people talk, you have to try to get a read on their style. Like, what is the tone and pace of their style? Because everybody talks differently. Some people, when they talk, they are being very literal. They're literally telling you exactly what they mean. That's the way that I talk. I tend to talk very literally and objectively and logically. When you talk to somebody like Trump, he tends to talk more metaphorically. So you can't take everything he says at face value. You got to understand what exactly does he mean. So last week when he was talking about alligator Alcatraz, I did a whole live on this concept. And he was saying, when he went down to the opening of the facility, and he was saying, hey, if you're getting chased by an alligator, you got to understand you shouldn't run in a straight line. You need to go in curved paths so the alligator can't catch you. Now, was he serious about, are the people in alligator Alcatraz are going to be chased around by alligators? No, it's a 30-foot high wall at the facility. I talked about this last week. Nobody's going to get chased by an alligator because, first of all, how are you going to get over a 30-foot high wall when they have security cameras and they got drones and armed guards there the whole time? You ain't going to get chased by an alligator because you're going to be sitting in that facility the whole time. So it was a metaphor, and he was being funny, and he tends to make jokes and joke about things that most politicians would never joke about. It's one of the reasons why he's a different type of politician, because he has a different type of style. And most humans, everyday citizens, tend to interpret things the way that you see things. So if you're a person who takes things literally, you will take everything he says literally, even though he's not speaking literally. Because most people can only see things the way they can only see other people the way they see themselves. So there's a whole metaphor behind that, speaking of metaphors. So anyway, folks, I'll do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I'll be doing the next one. Y'all be getting these bot text messages. So it was the text messages, now it's the phone calls. I get these bot phone calls every day. I get so many of them, it's crazy. Y'all get these bot phone calls? You look at my call log, it's just all red from random phone numbers calling my phone every day. Look at this. Just all random bot phone numbers. And I just block these numbers. I got to block so many numbers. Actually, one of these was somebody who I actually wanted to talk to. I did answer it. I did take their call later on. But I get so many of these bot calls every day. It's crazy. Then you get text. Then they send you then you get a voicemail. They all leave voicemails. And they're bot voicemails. So they don't get tired of leaving you voicemails because it's an automated voice message. Then you get the text message. So I got a text message. Someone says, I'm a recruiter at Target. Your resume has been recommended by multiple online recruitment agencies. I don't have a resume online. So I don't know. I don't have any resume posted anywhere. I don't have a resume on LinkedIn. I am unhireable. So I don't know what the hell she's talking about your resume. I have no resume online. And they say flexible part-time or full-time work, 60 to 90 minutes of work a day, 4 days a week, earn extra income on the weekends. What the hell is this? All right. In addition to maternity leave, paternity leave, and other statutory holidays. So I just got this text message. This bot shit is annoying. Somebody got to do something about that. All right, so y'all want, and you got a line on Donald Trump, tell him to do something about this. These bots, bot messages, bot phone calls. It's crazy. Anyway, I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, I think we're going to talk about the Stephen Colbert Show. Today's topic was a little bit more in depth. This one requires you actually listening to some people talking about this stuff, because this is more political deep waters, going into these details and naming these people who most people never even heard of. I never even heard of most of these people. But tomorrow we're going to get back more to mainstream stuff, more surface level. And surface level, not a bad thing. We're going to talk about the Stephen Colbert Show that got canceled. That's coming up. Biden's auto pen doing all the work. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about... I put the Colbert Show in here more than once. Joe Biden's doctors wouldn't testify when they got called to Capitol Hill. So all of those are coming up this week. Topic tomorrow to be determined. Depends on what happened today. I will see you all tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Appreciate everybody for liking the live. We did get up to 44,000 likes, so that's good. And whatever happened over on Rumble YouTube, I don't know what the hell happened with the sound here today. But hopefully, well, not hopefully, we got the replays on Instagram and on TikTok in case any of you want to catch it. I will see you all tomorrow morning. Appreciate all you. Work on your game. We out of here.